Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the Wilbur Games YouTube channel. And today we're going to be having a look forward to match day 6 of UCL Fantasy, the last game week or match day of the group stage, and of course before the World Cup break. So we have a bit of a refresh and completely different teams, obviously going forward into the knockout stages of unlimited transfers. So should be an interesting match day, trying to get the right players into who will actually play to start with, and then try get those hauls where we potentially can. So we're going to have a look at that. Appreciate everyone coming back after previous videos have done really well. I appreciate all the likes and subscriptions on the back of that. Of course, if you enjoy the content, please like or subscribe, both completely free, and it just really helps the channel, and I appreciate that. Apologies there was no video for the last match day. Unfortunately, I got COVID and then I also was on a holiday, so I apologise for that, but we're back for match day 6. And we're going to firstly just have a quick look at my team. I thought from previous videos, we've not really spoken about my team, just give you an idea of how I'm getting on. So you can see here 76 points in match day 5. Unfortunately, I was actually on holiday during this match day, so I did 2 early transfers to bring in Martinez and Dumfries that went not too bad, you can say there. Obviously, if I got Xhaka instead of Martinez, that would have been fantastic, but can't complain really. 76, I think, is probably just above average for that match day. As you can see throughout the season, really, there's not been any spectacular scores, but you can see they've been pretty consistent there. Maybe match day 2 could have been a bit better, but pretty consistent. And then if we go to the overall rankings to give you a bit of an idea, just short of 9k there, 9,227. So decent season so far. It's definitely got better the last few weeks, and as we're going to touch on very shortly, I have a Limitless to play match day 6, so we're going to have a little look around the fixtures for match day 6, and then we're going to have a look at kind of a draft that I've kind of just put together. Could be still quite a few changes after weekend games, but yeah, with that Limitless, hopefully get into top 5k, see what we can do from there, and hope for the best is all we can do really there. So not looking too bad at all. So if we move on then to match day 6, got the fixtures up here. So I think the key things you need to think about before we talk about the fixtures in match day 6 is, of course, you need to think of the state of groups here. So if you use an example of Manchester City are already qualified, they're unlikely to play their first choice 11 because there's not a great deal they will gain for playing their first choice 11. You've also got examples in the Man City team of Haaland, who's got a niggly injury. There's no reason they would risk playing 90 minutes with a Haaland in that game when they could just rest him and then get fully fit in the league. So you need to think of a lot of game state when you're talking about these fixtures. That's a key thing. You might want to prioritise teams that have got something to play for, because you don't want to have issues where you don't even get a full team out because they're all being benched or just not even playing because they're getting rested. So that's a key thing to think about. And obviously, if you've got a Limitless chip left, I would recommend using it now, because you can make... I think when you go through the knockout stages, you can bet on certain teams doing well, and the Limitless doesn't have as much value in the knockout stages for me. And obviously the key bit of the Limitless is getting 15 playing players. Obviously, you can take a few gambles in there and hope certain players will play. But I think a lot of these players that have something to play for will not feature heavily in our teams currently. So a Limitless is a great way to do that. But also thinking, if you're not on a Limitless and just making your normal 2 transfers, if you want to make more, then I wouldn't generally recommend it, but maybe 1 hit could be worth it depending on how many players you're going to get out for the match day. But you just need to think of match day 6 as a free hit in any circumstance, because you want these players for that one match day, and then you basically reset your whole team with unlimited transfers when we get to the knockout stage. So it's key to focus just solely on this match day. It's very rare that you get that, and obviously if you're in a Limitless, that would make sense anyway. So it's going to be definitely an interesting match day. But let's just jump into the fixtures and kind of get a gauge of kind of the state of the groups and what teams to target here. So the first set of fixtures, this is one of the groups that was very difficult to call from the start. Leverkusen against Club Brugge, and then Porto against Atletico. So here, Porto and Club Brugge have already qualified, which could be seen as a shock to some, but Atletico have been very poor this season, and I think even last season you could argue they've definitely dropped off from the levels they were before. But Porto and Club Brugge also need to compete for who will finish first. Both teams can currently still finish first. So I still think they will put out pretty strong teams. I prefer the Porto fixture because obviously they're at home, and Atletico don't score many goals. So I've currently got the Porto goalkeeper in my first draft that I've done, and I wouldn't mind another Porto asset. So it's not the worst place to go for there. Club Brugge, obviously got a few value picks there. I wouldn't necessarily be targeting them for this match day. I think they will probably put their full first 11 out. So if you've got like a Jutler or someone like that in your team already, then that's perfectly fine. You can rely on them getting quite a decent amount of minutes, but I wouldn't be bringing in someone for Club Brugge as their away to Leverkusen in an away game, especially in the Champions League. It can always be difficult no matter the game state. So maybe a bit of Porto action there. Then you've got the next group, which includes Liverpool, Napoli, Rangers and Ajax. Here again, Liverpool and Napoli are already qualified. It's very unlikely as well that Liverpool can get first. Napoli, I think it was 4-0 they won in the reverse fixture, so Liverpool would have to win by at least 4 goals here to overturn the head-to-head record and go above Napoli. So I can see that not being the most exciting game. You might want to go for a differential punt on a Liverpool player, maybe like a Darwin Núñez or something, but you just need to be aware that there could be rotation again in that. I wouldn't be surprised if like a Salah or someone got rested. Seems like a logical time to rest them, as it's kind of game over in that group for them, obviously already through. And then you've got Rangers and Ajax, which again, not much to say there. Ajax again won quite well against Rangers in the reverse fixture. So the only way Ajax would not get Europa League football is if Rangers gave them a big thrashing. So I feel like Ajax, the bit I quite don't mind about Ajax picks here is that Ajax haven't played at the weekend, which I was a bit confused by looking at the fixtures. So they should be quite fresh going into that game. Obviously, they did just lose at home to Liverpool, so might not be in the best state in terms of that. But I don't mind a punt on one, probably Ajax asset. If you've got like a Kudus in your team already, although he did get rotated in the previous game, he's not the worst player to keep in there. I wouldn't say he's a priority transfer out, especially with the value that he gives you in that team. So again, it's very difficult to pick standout options there for me in those set of fixtures. But it might get slightly more interesting as we get to the other games further down here. So we've got the group where Bayern and Inter are already qualified. So that game could go either way. I don't mind Bayern assets in that game, especially because it's at home, and they always like to put on a show, especially in the Champions League, Bayern, because I think that's where they need to prove their worth. So I don't mind keeping your Bayern players in that game. It could just be a boring 0-0, the fact that both of them are qualified, so just be wary of that. I wouldn't again prioritise them as a transfer in. Then this is a very difficult fixture. I don't think it's a difficult fixture to call in terms of the result, but it's just the rotation you're going to get here for Barca. So it's Poulsen away at Barcelona away at Poulsen. So generally you would target this fixture big on if there was something to play for, but there isn't anything for Barca to play for here. They're going to go into the Europa League. There's no way they can qualify for the next stage. So it's a difficult one here. I'm going to keep an eye on the Barcelona lineup as their game is on later tonight, but I feel like this is a fixture, especially if you're on a limitless, just to go all out for it. In my opinion, Barcelona will go quite strong here just to prove a point that they are kind of a big European team and can get big results, because it'll be slightly embarrassing to their reputation that they'll be falling into the Europa League. So for me, on a limitless, I think I'll target this fixture quite hard with Lewandowski would be the lock-in for me. And then I'm considering a defender and another attacker potentially alongside that. So that Barcelona fixture for me might be where I go for the captain on the first day currently. That's what I'm looking at. And obviously Lewandowski, who is pedigree in the Champions League, you hopefully can bank on him there. And then we're on to the last group of the first match day. So this is a very competitive group. I'm pretty sure from looking at the tables that any of these 4 teams can still qualify. So Spurs and Sporting are currently occupying the qualification spots, but Spurs away at Marseille and Sporting at home to Frankfurt. Any of these 4 teams can still qualify, depending on the results, of course. So every team here needs to go for the win. Obviously, Spurs and Sporting because they're already in the positions, if they get a draw in either of these games, that is also good enough for them to go through. So that's definitely the most exciting group. So I'm tempted to go for players in this because you know the players are going to play. They've got to put their best 11 out. So I'm tempted by Kane and Son in that away game at Marseille, but then that is a very difficult game. So I've currently got them in my draft, but I'm quite like to take one of them out because I think that's quite risky to go from both. I quite like Sporting as well, the fact they're at home. I think Pedro Porro is a good option at the back, and you could even go for an attacker. Frankfurt obviously did well in the was it Conference League, wasn't it, last season? So they can do quite well. I think those games are very difficult to call which way they're going to go. I'll be back in Spurs and Sporting, but I don't see a lot of games, especially in that Spurs game. So I'm maybe go for a Son or a Kane. I'm not sure. I'd double up on them both, even though you'll see the draft in a minute where I have. Because the one guarantee you have with them there is that they're going to start, especially with Kulusevski and Richarlison not being fully fit. I think they're kind of guaranteed to start, and it's such a high important game for Spurs to gain qualification. So again, a very difficult group. It's a very tight group. Can't believe how tight that group is. Really, Spurs should have got it done in the last game, but hey-oh. So if we move on to the second day of the match day. So again, Real Madrid already qualified, Celtic already out. So this is very difficult trying to predict what kind of lineup Real Madrid are going to play. I wouldn't be surprised if Vinicius, Benzema got a rest. I quite like Rodrigo in that case, who typically does quite well when he does get the minutes. So I think he would currently be the one on my radar. Obviously, we will know if they will play on the Wednesday, but it's not as helpful because we'll also already have to have them on our bench. But I think a punt on a Real Madrid asset is a good way to go. If we get some early team news, then keep an eye on that, and maybe keep an eye on what players are playing in the fixture at the weekend to try and get a gauge on that. And we've also got Shakhtar and Leipzig. So this is the crunch game here. So basically, whoever wins this game will qualify. So it's going to be very competitive. If you've got any players from either team here, I think you would keep them in a normal kind of week if you're not on a Limitless, because they're both going to be fully putting out their first 11. So very competitive game that's going to be there. So then I think they're slightly out of order here with the Benfica. I was saying they're all grouped together, but you've got Maccabi Haifa and Benfica, who are in the same group as, I don't know why this is the only one that's not in order, are in the same group as Juve and PSG. So PSG and Benfica have already qualified, but neither of them have secured first place yet. So I'm quite intrigued by this in terms of this battle for first, because I expect both of these teams to go for it. That Benfica fixture obviously is against the kind of the whipping boys of the group, who you'd expect them to do quite well against. So I'm quite confident I'm going for Benfica here. Like a Grimaldo, I quite like João Mario because he's on penalties. I could even stretch for a third option there just because of how good the fixture is. So I really like that. And then I think from the PSG point of view, Juve have been pretty weak this whole season, even for the last season also. So I think, obviously, if you're in a normal transfer situation, you've probably already got a PSG attacker. I think on a Limitless situation, you would want to have the coverage of at least one PSG attacker just in case that game goes off. And there's a lot of goals in it. Obviously, bear in mind that Neymar is suspended, so that might help you in a way that really you're going for Mbappe or Messi, or even if you want to go for both, it's not the worst option because you can get upside from that and obviously cover off any potential holes there, because PSG are one of those teams that can get you the mega holes. So I quite like Benfica and PSG there. Obviously, it depends what kind of Juve turns up in that game. Again, another group with not a lot to play for, as we're saying on a lot of these. Copenhagen, Dortmund, and Man City against Seville. So Dortmund and City are already through. So I don't see a lot in these fixtures. Man City, I don't mind you going for a defender because I think there's quite a high chance of them getting a clean sheet. But the attackers are just, it's going to be rotation. So maybe if you want to take a punt on one, maybe kind of a Mahrez would be a logical kind of option who will probably get this game based on if City are going to go for a rotated side. But I wouldn't be going all in on Man City here because I don't think they're going to play it. They might play a 50% kind of strong team. I wouldn't go for the first starting 11 there. And the Dortmund away at Copenhagen kind of intrigues me because it's away at Copenhagen, but then Dortmund have got nothing to play for. So I think that's one of those trap ones where fair play Bellingham or Guerriero, as I like to call him, could do quite well. But it's one of those tricky ones. Depends what kind of lineup they play and how seriously they take that game, Dortmund. So it's kind of watch out for that fixture. I think there, be careful not going all in on that. Maybe one asset from them just to cover it off. And then the final group is Milan against Salzburg and Chelsea against Dinamo Zagreb. So again, similar with Chelsea here, it's very difficult to tell what kind of lineup they're going to play because Chelsea have already qualified. Milan against Salzburg is going to be a very intriguing game again, but I'm not sure I'd want to go for assets in that game. In this group, I think I'd only be just taking a risk on like a Chelsea fullback. Chilwell didn't play at the weekend. He came off the bench, so I'm tempted to put Chilwell in my team currently, as we'll see in the draft in 1 minute. But it's again difficult to go for them. The fixture is very nice there, so I'm tempted to maybe take a punt on an attacker as well, but it's very difficult to tell, especially with Potter now at Chelsea, who's going to play at all in that team. So I don't mind it for a 1 week punt, but it's risky, especially because we're on the second day. I don't mind risks like on the first day. I wish these fixtures were different on the first games of the Tuesday, but we just take what we've got to take, haven't we? Maybe take a punt more on a few more Porto defenders because you've got the backup the day after, but we shall see how that one goes. So if we go up here, I've got an idea of kind of a draft that I put together. Obviously, this is the first draft, so there could be some changes to this, but it gives you an idea of the thinking, and we've been talking about a lot of these kind of teams as we've been going through. So, of course, I'm on a Limitless here, so you can see I've spent over the budget, as you'd expect. So up front, I've currently got Mbappe, who, obviously the captain armband is just on there because he was my captain in the previous week. So this is just getting considerations in here. So Mbappe, obviously away at Juve, PSG can go off as we've discussed. It can only really be Mbappe or Messi you'd go for in that position. Lewandowski, as we touched on, I'd argue you've got one of the best fixtures in this match day. So away at Poulsen, you think in the Champions League, Lewandowski does well. So banking on him doing well, hoping that Barca go all out with that lineup. That's just one to keep an eye out for. Could say it's slightly risky, but I think just based on the fixture, going for that is a decent play. So currently I've got Kane and Son in this draft. I'm not convinced by that at all. I think I will change one of them out. A bit unsure maybe if to go for a Messi or obviously change Son out of someone else. But it's just the fact that that game is so big for Spurs and they need to get something from it. But I don't think I'm going to double up on it because away at Marseille is quite a difficult fixture. But currently that was the thinking. But like I said, that's probably the main premium kind of position. Obviously it doesn't matter on a Limitless that I'll be looking at possibly changing. So we touched on Real Madrid, that I think there'll be rotation. So currently I've got Rodrigo in there because he tends to not always feature in the first team, but when he plays, he does quite well. Potentially, if Benzema's not on the pitch, they could be on penalties as well, which would be ideal, but that's one to watch out for there. I've currently got Bergwijn in here. Ajax, as we mentioned, are basically already in the Europa League, unless Rangers thrash them. I think the Rangers away game is quite a good game for Ajax to bounce back after the Liverpool game, so I've currently got him in there, who he's got kind of that whole potential in there, possibly. But we shall see on that one. Then, if we just flick to the bench, so we stay on the midfield, I've currently got João Mario in there, getting in the Benfica contingent who have done very well, as we've discussed, and competing for first with PSG. So, João Mario away in one of the easier fixtures against Maccabi Haifa. So, the fact that he's on penalties, he's currently in the team, he's done quite well this season in the Champions League as well. And then, as we mentioned on the Barcelona contingent, I've currently got Ousmane Dembele in there in hope that that's the fixture, the Barcelona away at Poulsen fixture, that everything kicks off and we get a lot of returns in there, because I don't see a lot of teams who aren't on a Limitless going for free Barcelona players. So it's kind of one of those all or nothing kind of fixtures. It's just you're just like fingers crossed for that lineup for Barcelona. So that's the main thing you need to look out for. Stay on the bench if we move into defence. As we said with Barcelona, I've currently got Marcos Alonso in there. That could be any Barcelona defender, not going to lie. Keeping an eye on the lineups on, I think they're playing tonight, Saturday night, when I'm recording this. So just keep an eye out who plays in that fixture for Barcelona and try and guess who is going to play. Elsewhere in defence, got another Benfica player there with Grimaldo. He's always kind of like he's a fan favourite, I think, in these like UCL kind of games, because he can always pop up with a goal. Benfica have been doing quite well in defence, so I like him as an option there. I've got Pedro Porro, who are in the very competitive group where I think Sporting at home have probably got the best chance of qualifying, even more than Spurs. So Pedro Porro at home to Frankfurt I quite like. We talked about taking a punt on a Chelsea defender. They're at home against Zagreb, so I quite like that as well. Currently on Chilwell because he didn't start in the league game on Saturday. Again, it's a punt, but hopefully goes well. And then I've currently got Hakimi in there. Hakimi could have been a City defender. I quite like having a City defender. Potentially, it's just getting the right one. You've probably got a high chance that Cancelo plays because there's not a lot of fullbacks available for City, but you never know. It could be the game against a rest. So Hakimi is currently in there for me. Obviously, the attacking potential he has. And then in goal, obviously on the Limitless, it's very important to get the Tuesday and Wednesday fixtures. So currently, I've got Diego Carlos in there again for Porto against Atletico Madrid for the first match day, and then Courtois, hoping that he obviously starts for Real Madrid as the backup, because I think there's a high chance of a clean sheet there against Celtic. So I think overall it's covering everything you would want to do. Obviously, I said the Kane or Son is the most obvious one. I'm going to change one of them. Have a look at the lineups, how everyone's played over the weekend, and before I finalise the decision, probably on Monday. But that kind of touches on all those fixtures we should be targeting and gives you a good idea, especially if you're not on Limitless, the kind of areas you should be looking to go towards. I wish those Tuesday early fixtures were better fixtures that we could target, but we just got to make of it what we can, and this gives you a good idea, I think. And obviously, some of them, like going all out on a Barcelona, could backfire, but it's kind of the risk you want to take on a Limitless. And obviously, if one or two of those players don't play, you hope that with all your 15 players that you'll be covered and they will play. Because when I look at this team, I think there's a risk on the free Barcelona players. Rodrigo is one of those ones where I'm a bit, he could play. I think he's quite, I'd say 90% he will play Rodrigo there. The whole defence, except for Chilwell, I'm pretty confident on. So really, I'd say there's 5 or 6 risks in that team, but if it goes badly wrong, obviously they won't play. But you'd be hopeful that you're not unlucky with 5 or 6 players that just completely don't play. So I'm quite confident that could go well. So that is the kind of draft I'm looking towards, guys. Obviously, you'll be able to see how it goes, and we'll probably do an update after Matchday 6, obviously, because it's the end of the group stage and then going into the World Cup. So we won't be doing any UCL Fantasy kind of content during that stage, but I will be looking at doing some World Cup Fantasy. Hopefully, the game will launch soon. I've seen something on the UEFA website that it should be launching soon, as I think it's about 3 weeks away. So fun times ahead. But for now, guys, that is it for Matchday 6. Like I said earlier, if you enjoy the content, if any of the points in the video really helped you or have been useful to you, please like and subscribe to the video. Both completely free and really help the channel. I appreciate you all, and we shall see you next time. And good luck with Matchday 6, however you're tackling it. Have a great rest of your evening.